favor? Okay. Oh, goodness, more consents I have to give. Okay, adoption of the minutes. Does anyone have any comments about the minutes? Okay, motion to adopt the minutes. Looks like Kirsty again, second.
Richard.
Okay, Richard, good. All in favor? I take that as unanimous. Good.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't there, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, thanks.
Steph, is anyone lined up to give public comments?
I don't have any public comments.
Good. Council referral, development permit application for 1104 and 1108 Foxglove Lane. I think I turn the meeting over to Daniel right now.
Great, thanks, Michael. Okay, so we have a council referral that is one that you have seen before, although it's changed since you last saw it. But I'll just give you a presentation going over the application and where we stand. Okay. So this is a variance permit application for 2 lots on Foxglove Lane, which is located just off of Miller Road. And in terms of where this application has gone, it's had quite a lengthy process here, and that we originally received this application in September of 2022 and went through some amendments before being introduced to council in May of 2023 and we did referrals to committees in, it says July 2023, and that I feel like the APC meeting was actually later. It may have been September or August. But then what happened is in September, the municipality, we completed the upgrades to the Snug Cove sewer system, and we're able to offer this property and other vacant properties in Foxglove the ability again to connect to the sewer system, which if you remember, that was part of the rationale of the variance before, was the need to accommodate a septic field at the back of the property. So with that new information, the applicant opted to amend their application. And so that is what was returned to council in January of this year. We're currently in a notice period, and council has set a date of February 26th as the next council meeting for a consideration date of the variance permit. And in this period, they've referred it to you and to the advisory design panel and to the housing advisory committee meeting. So we had the design panel meeting on Monday, meeting with you today, and the housing committee on Friday. So what I've listed here is what the current zoning permits, what the original, and then on the far side, what the original DVP that was presented to council requested, and then in the middle is what the application is before you today. So the application as it stands is for an increase to the maximum FSR, which is the floor square ratio. So essentially the floor area permitted in the building. They are not seeking other variances. So the previous application asked for a variance to the front yard setback, to the maximum dwelling size, and to the building height. And so all of those have been removed, and the total size of the building from that variance permit has been reduced. So they're seeking an additional 93 square meters, or about 1,000 square feet. So under the permitted zoning, they could build 464 square meters of floor area, which is about 5,000 square feet. And then within this variance, they're seeking to build essentially another 1,000 square feet to go up to an FSR of 1.022 FSR. So if you remember, this is what the original application that came to council in May and came to you as a referral looked like. So a building that was 4 levels high, with the top floor going that side to side across the building. And then this is the amended application. So essentially trying to, they've reduced the scale of the building somewhat and essentially tried to model it to be 3 stories and look like essentially the 2 duplexes put together. So changing the roof line so that they run front to back of the building with a ridge in between. And then the variance permit would have a condition on it that would say that one of the units would be covered by a housing agreement, that it be a rental unit for a 5-year term after occupancy be granted. One of the big things council heard from the previous application was from residents of Bowen Court who had concerns about the impact of the building that it would have on their views. And so what the applicant provided that we presented to council in January was essentially an image of the proposed building taken from the view of Bowen Court, trying to show the reduced impact that having this different configuration would have on the views. And what else? And then this project's in the village residential zone, or village residential designation in our official community plan. And so there's a couple policies we have that relate to townhouses in this land use designation. So policy 160 talks about townhouses in the village residential area. And talks about the scale and character of the development blending in with the surrounding natural environment, and that the impacts on adjacent properties pertaining to traffic, privacy, screening, and views can be adequately managed. And policy 167, proposed development must be consistent with the scale and diversity of a village. Townhouses designed to minimize detrimental effects on adjacent single detached homes. And yeah, that's the end of the presentation. So I'll stop sharing and I'll open up for questions.
Anyone have questions for Daniel? Brenda?
Yeah, I have a couple. One is Daniel, I think you said that the unit would be covered by, one of the units would be covered by a 5-year agreement and respecting the rental. And is that an agreement to have it rented at a so-called affordable rate, or what exactly would be the terms of that?
No, it wouldn't be at a rate. It would just set it as a rental unit. And I think the conditions are just the conditions that we have on some places where it by priority be given to Bowen resident or employee on Bowen.
Okay. And then my other question is, I believe at the last, it was September 6th, by the way, was when it came before us. And I believe then one of the things that was discussed by the owners of the land was the accessibility that they wanted to provide in the suite, which was their as I recall, their justification for needing a larger space is because it was going to be wheelchair accessible. Is that, I didn't hear that mentioned as part of this proposal.
Sorry, I was trying to find the drawings of the building here, but I'm not sure I've saved them. But no, that's not explicitly part of it. Like the previous application you saw had larger units to allow additional space, and they're no longer seeking that variance to enlarge the size of the units.
So that's no longer part of what they're proposing to do. Okay. And then just my last question, and then I may have others, but I'll turn over the floor to someone else. Is there why the 5-year agreement to supply rental housing? Is there any sort of rationale for that period of time?
No, that's essentially offered by the applicant, was the 5-year term. I mean, typically our housing agreements, either don't expire, so essentially it's life of the building, or I'm aware of some that have shorter timelines. So for example, the townhouses that exist below the municipal hall, they're sort of, I think they're 4plexes or 6plexes. Yeah, their agreement had a 10-year housing agreement on them as part of rezoning. And then I will say too, though, part of it is that we will often be more aggressive in seeking that if if additional units are being granted. So if it's our housing agreement policy where it's like a rezoning that's adding units, then we would seek it to be the life of the units.
Sure, but I think I read that one of the ideas here is that having the larger space would provide rental housing more suited for a family, so that would be the advantage or amenity, if you will, that the public might receive if the larger area were granted. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I may come back, but
Sure.
thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Anyone else have a question or comment?
I
Richard.
was just confused by one comment that you made there, Daniel. You said the applicant is no longer seeking larger units in Brenda's question regarding accessibility. I thought specifically they are asking for an increase in the FSR. I'm confused.
Right. So they're asking for an increase in FSR, but not the zoning has a maximum dwelling size of 140 square meters, so about 1,500 square feet. In the application that came to September, they had sought to have larger units of up to 182 square meters, so about 2,000 square feet. And that's no longer part of their application. So the way the zoning works, like for the duplexes that exist, for example, the zoning allows a 0.85 FSR and it allows 140 square meter maximum dwelling size. But the way that basically the size of the lots means you can't build 2 units that are 140 square meters each. You end up with them each about 110 or 120 square meters, or in theory, under the zoning, you could do one that's bigger and one that's smaller. But the existing duplexes have chosen essentially they end up with 2 the same size that are below the maximum dwelling size permitted in the zoning. So this additional floor area, allows the units to be bigger, but they don't need a variance to increase the dwelling size beyond that's permitted in the zoning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand now. Thanks.
Okay.
But they are getting, just to be clear, if this were granted, they are in fact getting an extra 1,000 square feet beyond what would otherwise be permitted. I mean, that's why we're here.
Yes. So
Yeah.
the building can be bigger. And so as a result, yes, the units can be bigger, but each individual unit can't be bigger than permitted in the zoning. Yeah. So like absent the zoning, they could build 1,000 square feet, or absent the variance, they could build 1,000 square feet less. But in theory, they could choose to have, 2 that are 140 square meters and 2 that are smaller.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, to begin with, I actually have a very simple question. Tell us about the advisory design panel. I've run across them before and I've been too shy to ask about it. What do they do?
Sure. So we have 2 development permit areas. Betty actually is a great expert on this as well.
Was she on the panel? I should
yeah.
ask her.
But there are 2 development permit areas in Snug Cove that have form and character guidelines. So we do development permits for them. They have to meet the form and character.
No pink
and so
stucco.
yeah, we don't like flat roofs and so this property is within the village periphery development permit area, so it has lesser guidelines, but will need a development permit. So after a variance permit, they will need a development permit for form and character prior to receiving a building permit.
Okay, and I think you said that the advisory design panel had already met on this amended application.
Yeah.
Betty, can you tell us what happened at that meeting? Oh, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I wasn't able to be there, so I've read the minutes, but
They recommended approval. They had sort of comments on I think more they were sort of saying we're glad we'll see it again, because we have comments on how the face of the building is going to perform, but they recommended approval of sort of the increased massing of the building.
Did they give a reason for their recommendation?
They were satisfied it wouldn't be impacting views beyond what's currently there. And the panel felt that the increased FSR wouldn't be noticeable from the street, so wouldn't result in sort of feeling out of scale.
Yeah, I noticed the new roof line, I think, probably opens up the view a little more. The little diagram, it had not just this building, but had the adjacent building, so it looks like there's kind of a peekaboo effect between the buildings. I'm curious, it's probably irrelevant to the application, but curious to know what they're going to do with the other 3 units that will not be covenanted for rental. Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I believe their intent is to stratify the building through construction similar to the other or
Okay.
similar to the duplexes that are there. Yeah.
No. Okay. Almost wondering why this has come back to us. I guess it is a pretty significant change. And Kirsty
Significant
is,
change. And I mean, I recommend it in part because when it came to you in September, your recommendation was that it come back to you. So I wanted to make sure that that was followed.
okay, that's right. We wanted
Oh.
to see the drawings, which I notice have been produced. Martin, do you have any comment on the drawings?
No, I'm just wondering actually well, it's more of an architectural question, maybe not relevant here, but is there something in the form and character guidelines that requires a specific roof slope here? Because it seemed fairly high. The trusses are
Yeah,
somewhat.
I mean, definitely the design panel was commented on that a fair amount. Just that either it seemed like a shame of wasted space that you'd want like windows or something to let the light in, or could it be reduced? This development does have design guidelines commented on title that do require, they have a minimum and a maximum roof pitch. So I think that there's room in the design guidelines for the roof pitch to be lowered, but there are sort of thresholds that are allowed.
Okay. And
Any comments there regarding energy performance over and above the current step code requirements and the bylaws? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Again, those are not really questions for us. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Seems like a
Okay with it.
slam dunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, am I right in understanding the footprint is not changing?
They're not increasing the lot coverage beyond,
Okay.
what's permitted.
That's the proper term. I like footprint
Yeah.
better. But,
As far as
Steph,
accessibility is concerned, that's now governed by building code. We have a new building code coming in next month
okay.
with increased requirements. So I presume that they will comply with that.
Well, they'll have to, won't they?
Yeah.
And they'll
Richard?
have to, like I would say, Martin, they have sort of, conceptual massing things. They don't have like building permit
Yeah,
ready
of course.
drawings. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I think Richard had his hand up there.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the neighbors. I think 4 of the neighbors have written in opposition to this.
Mhm.
But is there anything in your view that's detrimental in the design of this building? Like, will it have a detrimental effect on those neighbors in some way? But what is it that they're in
Yeah.
opposition to?
I mean, the opposition is essentially, and I hate summarizing people's letters, but concern that increasing the scale, essentially that this is a subdivision where the zoning is set, where it outlines a maximum that the other people developed within the maximum that is there, and that this building then be increased beyond that. They were in opposition to, and I will say, like council at the meeting did hear that from those 4. And spoke
Is
to,
it
well,
just
wanting to send it
jealousy?
out to notice, wanting to hear comment from the committees, but wanting to have a chance to hear from, more of the residents on that street, and that they would be like taking those to heart. Yeah.
Yeah, those people will have another opportunity to either reiterate or come up with new issues. Steph, and I'll get to you in a moment, Betty. I remember we felt fairly positive back in September. Could you dig up our specific comments from that meeting? I know I should have checked it out myself earlier, but unless someone else has a memory better than mine. Brenda, you do?
Well, I wrote them down. We said that we supported the application in principle, and specifically we supported the proposed accessibility options, which is why I asked about it. And secondly, the island-wide community update meeting that they were going to be having. But I don't know what happened there with that idea.
I remember that now. So is there any reason why we shouldn't bring those forward to the comments for this referral, just so we don't lose them?
So can you see the screen where I've copied that?
I can, thank you.
Okay, so I'll just copy that over into the body of this meeting minutes.
Well, we don't need the drawing. I think we have the drawings. The last thing was affordability be addressed, and I don't think there's anything specific to that in this in this amended application, is there, Daniel?
No.
Okay. Which is part of why I asked what they intended to do with the other 3 units. I mean, selling affordable housing to owners is almost as important as rental.
Was
Okay.
there a rental in the previous?
There was no like rental condition.
No, but in the previous proposal,
Yeah,
back
no.
plan, there wasn't. So now there is one rental unit here.
Okay, so that's a step up in my view.
Yeah.
Now, Betty, I think you wanted to say something a while back. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm on this time. I did actually like that the units were a little, I mean, most of them are 3-bedroom, and I think that addresses the fact that we have a lot of families that are struggling to find places to live. And there was one letter when I went through and read them. I thought some of the letters in the package were really referring more to the previous plan. But there was one letter that kind of stood out that sort of didn't want too many people. And I thought it was actually kind of an unfortunate letter. It was sort of like, we want this to be a seniors only complex or something.
Yeah, no, I remember that letter, and this is
Yeah.
this is the dilemma. Affordability almost necessarily means increased density,
Yeah.
and
Especially in
and
the code.
it's a pity Councillor Jerkins is not here, because that's the kind of thing that I just say, okay, you guys are the legislators. Which is more important to you, affordability or the densities that you've already agreed on? I don't think it's a secret I would come down on the side of affordability. Glenda.
Yeah. So I guess I've just been thinking about Daniel's answer to my question about the rationale for the 5-year rental commitment. And I don't see why it should be limited to only 5 years, because, you know, the benefit of having an extra 1,000 square feet is something that the owners will have for the life of their ownership of the building. And it would be, you know, since this is an option to be rented by a family with the larger size, I would actually want to see a recommendation from us, if enough of us agree, to increase that to at least a 10-year term, you know, if not to a commitment that runs with the building for the life of their ownership of it.
How
Anyone
does
else?
that work if they stratify the building?
The
It could be
landlord
stratified.
is, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, we would adopt a housing agreement bylaw on the property prior to occupancy. And so they would be required to rent out that unit.
Yeah, the landlord would, as I think Martin was about to say, the landlord would become the strata member.
So at the end of the 5-year term, the Residential Tenancy Act would really kick in and require the maintenance of that unit as a rental, at least until that tenant decided to vacate, right?
Well, like under the residential tenancy, it's like, you know, I guess for like owner's use of property, eviction can be served.
Actually, some renovation or owner
Yeah.
occupancy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
old renoviction, they used to call them.
Yeah, without having an agreement, that's certainly the case.
Okay, does anyone else have any comment on the time? I think we all like the idea of the rental covenant. Does anyone have any other comment on the length of it? Kirsty, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm happy with 5 years. I think that that's going to be a bunch of buildings that may be sold, maybe all rented. And if we have one that's required to be rented for 5 years, that's good by me. I think putting too many restrictions on things is not how we're going to increase housing on the island.
Yeah. It also is a market rental, so the
Yeah.
landlord can't really complain about losing revenue that they calculated when they did their initial costing. Anyone else on the time? Okay. Well, should we try and cobble together? I think are we firstly, are we generally still in favor of this development? I think it would be kind of mean-spirited to say no now, but
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Steph, it's time for your drafting skills.
Well, I don't have much. I don't think there
Well, I
was-
think we want to bring forward the our
Yes,
our comments from September 6th.
Okay, so can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
We can.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'm taking out not support. You
We
support?
do support. Yeah.
Okay, and then the comment I have is this 5-year commitment, which is not landing unanimously. And then I just have the note here about September. So would you like me to pop this at the top with a whereas then?
Well, why? Yeah, I think it's a pity that he didn't address the accessibility options, or maybe they're implicit in the drawings. I don't know.
Was it September 6th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why don't we
So we can say whereas.
okay,
then.
the comment may be that we are assuming that the accessibility options that we previously supported remain in place.
Okay, so I'll just do this for now, just a sec. So recommendations that the accessibility options described or presented.
Supported by the commission.
Sorry, but were they presented in September or included in
Well, I was
the?
going to say supported by the commission on September 6th.
Should we say accessibility features?
Sure. That's actually more specific, isn't it? On September 6th, remain in place. And I don't know how we deal with the affordability thing. The market, this is clearly a market-driven project. It's no secret that the developers, the applicant, hope to make a profit. And I don't disrespect them for that at all. Does anyone remember, we just asked them to consider affordability, but they didn't make any commitment, right? It's a pity they're not here now.
Correct.
Maybe that's where the rental idea came from.
Oh, okay. You're right, because that would create more, for
Yeah.
people who can't afford to purchase. Okay. Well, so maybe we don't need that again.
Just with regards to the 5-year versus the 10-year, I kind of agree with Kirsty's comment. At least, if we could get some rationale as to why they are specifically offering 5 years, how does that tie into their pro forma for the project?
Okay. Well, why
Maybe
don't
that
we
would be-
express it in kind of a negative way and say that the applicant provide a rationale for limiting the commitment
to 5 years.
to 5 years. So I think we do see it as a limitation that ought not to be necessary. And
It
that
may be
is-
necessary. We don't know. So,
No, but they can tell it. They can say
Yeah.
after 5 years, we need to sell it to cover our costs or something. Is that okay with you, Brenda? Because you raised that issue.
Yes, I'm just watching Steph's magic here.
It is magic, isn't it?
Does this make sense?
Yeah,
Would it be magic, the rationale behind limiting?
Well, maybe we can say, if you want, we could add to that, as the commission, maybe we could say, as the commission believes a longer period of time might be appropriate. or something like that.
Some people in the commission.
Okay, do you want to have a, let's do.
Well, maybe we should do a straw poll then.
Yeah,
I
exactly. I
know-
was going to vote on this issue separately anyway, but I
Yeah.
wanted to get some language to vote on.
Oh.
Good idea.
Sorry, I thought I'd
So-
let you see.
But just before we vote on this, one question. I don't think that the stipulation that this is a rental unit would preclude the developer from selling this unit to
Mhm.
whoever
A di-
wants to buy
A
it as
different
an
landlord,
investment.
of course, yeah, yeah.
And so that landlord then, after 5 years, could, as Martin has pointed out, say that they want to occupy it themselves. And that would end, that would satisfy the tenancy restriction.
Okay.
So it can be purchased as an investment property. I'm just trying to think through the scenario here. We're not forcing the developer to hang on to this property for 5 years. They can sell it.
Yeah, if they don't like the fact that it's limited to rental for 5 or 10 or whatever period of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So Steph, can we go back to the language?
Mm, yep.
So this is the version. And I was going to suggest, okay, well, let me just say, well, why don't I do this straw poll? I know Brenda's a 10, and Kirsty's a 5. So Richard and Martin, where do you land on this? And please don't
I
make me
worry
and
that
Betty-
there's a project killing factor, and I don't know, or maybe it's very specific as 5 years, so there must
Okay.
be a reason for it.
Okay, well, so we'd be seeking the rationale.
Maybe 7.5 for me or something.
Betty, I haven't heard from you on this time
Okay.
frame.
5 years.
Okay, and Richard,
Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with 5 years.
are you interested in, well, we're asking for the rationale.
Yeah.
But well, I guess the rationale may cause us to change our mind about supporting it. So that looks like it's about 3-2. Thank goodness I don't have to cast a.
But aren't we asking them to provide their rationale to council? Like, we're not asking for this to come back to us.
Right.
Sure.
To council. Why don't we say be specific about that too?
Yeah.
Provide their rationale to council's satisfaction. Why don't we say? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that'll.
Yeah.
And any other, and I mean, this is why I say that we have to be careful. We're not the legislators here, so we have to let them make their decision. And what? Oh, I see MPY because of MP, the other MP.
Oh, yeah.
Any other comment that anyone wishes to provide before I call the vote?
I'm just wondering if the comment about the roof lines again, do we want to make any comment there or?
Well, it sounds like they're
Any-
they're within their development design guidelines.
Yeah,
And I think I'd be reluctant to interfere with that.
Yeah.
it's all about, it's that language about trying not to impact the views of the other.
Yeah, and they did change the roof line to do that, to mollify that a little bit. But again, this is one of those sort of trade-offs for affordability, increased density and increased impact on the neighbors. Just have to decide what matters.
Mhm.
Okay, and Stephanie is back with us. Any further comment that you would like included, anyone? Okay, can I have a mover? Thank you, Brenda. And a seconder?
Betty,
Betty? All in favor? Okay, good work. Yeah, I do feel sorry for I get the feeling that the immediate neighbors to the south wish that they had thought of this and had applied for the increased area themselves, but and I take it there was a lot of opposition in the mid 2023, and it seems to have died down. But then there'll be another notice going out, right, Daniel? So, okay.
Yeah, it'll go out next. Well, it went out before we introduced it again, so before the January meeting, and it'll go
Okay.
out again
And
next
you've
week.
heard nothing, I think you said, right?
So we had those letters that were on the first so like the January meeting. I think there were 4 from the neighbors, and there was 1 from somebody outside the neighborhood, and there was people from Bowen Court came and spoke at the meeting.
Yeah, there
And I
was
haven't received more since then.
the one from the guy suggesting council didn't have jurisdiction. I read that, and
Oh, that yes.
yeah, jurisdiction is the will of the body making the decision. That's the way I always see it. I never saw anyone never saw anyone. Oh, somebody has a comment. Oh, the dog. Okay, new business. Any new business? Other business? By the way, I noticed the council has referred the short-term rentals policy to us.
Oh, good.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah. Well, you know, sometimes you get muddy.
Hold
Got to
on.
get down into it. I actually, the way I look forward to that, I think it raises a lot of the issues that we're trying to address without articulating the particular policy we have in mind, if I could put it that way. Information items, strategic plan, question period. No members of the public present, right, Steph?
There is no members of the public.
Okay, of course, they may be lurking on YouTube, but
Sorry, I just want to, because you're
Yeah.
making me panic a bit. So I've just found the council excerpt referral from January 8th about the short-term policy review, and my records say it's been referred to the Housing Advisory Committee and the Community Economic Development Committee.
That's what I was just checking too.
oh, that's
I
the
don't
short-term
see it.
rentals thing?
But
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
not
don't
to
see
the
it being
APC.
referred here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not to the APC. I misread that. Oh,
But
darn.
where
I'll
did
have
you
to
see
make
that
my
so that
voice.
my heart can calm down?
I know.
didn't
Yes.
find where you saw that.
Okay, sorry, it was too much sun and surf, you know, when I was reading that.
No, we do have a survey though. I'm happy to provide the link that we would love your feedback from. Directly will be.
I got the thing in the mail.
Oh,
The little
good.
pamphlet.
There we go.
Yeah,
And we'll be
I've
having
done it.
open houses in a couple weeks. Excellent.
Of course,
And
now
then we
I'm
do
offended that it wasn't referred to us.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
I will
I'm
say I
kidding.
do with the next council agenda. I think I have a rezoning application that may be referred to you. So
Okay.
if anybody's
No,
looking for a little light reading in
You know,
advance.
Daniel, I'm not looking for work here.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone have any? Sorry about that mistake, Steph.
No, it's okay.
I apologize to your
I
colleagues.
guess we're not saying goodbye until it's cleared up.
I did misread it. See, that's why I had to ask about the design committee. Okay. Anyone have any final comments before I call for a motion to adjourn?
No.
Good. A motion to adjourn, please. Kirsty, this is usually. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Taking over from David Rich. Yeah.
Okay.
Enjoy this
I
beautiful
take
Thanks.
that all in favor, and thank you everybody for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye
night.
now.
All right, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.